Peter, you're on.
We are on. There we are. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 30th, 2023 edition of the Plastow Zoning Board of Adjustment. Dee, would you call the roll?
Peter Belo,
I am here.
Jim Unger,
I'm here.
Jonathan Gifford is excused, Michael Murray,
Here.
Jim O'Brien.
Present.
Okay, we have four members. Let's stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. O'Brien, would you lead us in that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. So before we get going here, I'm going to read a little bit about the meeting procedure. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. So each public hearing will be opened in turn. The applicant will present their case, the board will question, and then the hearing will be open to the public for comment. Once everyone who wishes to be heard has been heard, the public hearing will be closed. Once a public hearing has been closed, there can't be any additional input. The board will immediately deliberate on that application before opening another public hearing on any additional applications. There could be times when applications are so interrelated that the chair may decide to hear several simultaneously, but each will be deliberated separately, and I'm not seeing that tonight. All motions regarding relief will be made in the affirmative to grant form for clarity and consistency. The format of the motion should not be considered indicative of how any member, including the maker of the motion or the second to the motion, might vote. Written notices of decision will be sent to the applicant and made available for public viewing within 5 business days. You're also welcome just to stay here and hear yourself. Per the New Hampshire RSAs, if any party of standing feels the board has erred in their decision, they have 30 days to request for a rehearing. No permits will be issued within that 30-day period. The board reserves the right to continue their deliberations on any matter if they feel they need to consult with legal counsel. All decisions will be made in accordance with New Hampshire RSAs or laws. Now, this is the case tonight, folks. In the case of a less than a 5-member board, so normally this board has 5 members. One couldn't make it tonight, and the second or alternate couldn't as well. The New Hampshire RSAs require that any motion for relief can only be granted by a favorable vote of at least 3 members of the board, as opposed to a simple majority of the members present at any meeting. Therefore, when there's less than a full board of 5 voting members present, the applicant's chances of approval could be considered diminished. When there are less than 5 voting members present, the applicant has the right to continue their application to the next available meeting in hopes that there will be 5 voting members available to hear their application. If any applicant decides to proceed with less than a 5-member board, they do so at their own peril. If an applicant moves forward and does not prevail in their request for relief, the lack of a 5-member board will not be considered as grounds to request a rehearing. And that's all we have. Any questions? Okay, so just so people are aware ahead of time, I'm going to ask each applicant if they wish to go forward with a 4-member board tonight, just so we have it in the record. Okay, why don't we start? Let's get done with the cases, then we'll go to the minutes,
Okay.
just to help get people out of here in a timely manner. Dee, would you call the first case?
Case number 2314, a request from Barbara A. Murphy Fielding and Jared Fielding for a variance from Article 5, Table 22032E of the Plastow zoning ordinances to allow a lot with 252 feet, .22 feet of frontage to be subdivided into 2 lots, which would require a minimum frontage of 300 feet, 150 feet per lot. The property is located at 11 Springview Terrace, Tax Map 53, Lot 37, in the MDR zoning district. The applicants are the property owners of record.
Would the applicants please come up and have a seat? Try not to be too nervous. We won't bite, promise.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Barbara A. Murphy Fielding, 11 Springview Terrace.
Thank you.
Okay, so what are you looking to do here? I see probably a image of your property up there now.
I want to subdivide. My son and I bought the house together, and he's.
Excuse me, I need you to speak into that microphone there.
Oh.
You can move it. You can move it closer to you. But you just need to be speaking into it. Thank
Okay.
you.
My son and I bought our house together, and now he wants to build his own house. So we wanted to subdivide the land, but I am about 48 feet short of being the legal 150 feet for each lot of frontage.
Okay, and you're on basically a cul-de-sac there, right?
Yes.
Okay, before we go through the variance criteria, does anybody have any initial questions? Okay. Well, I think first thing we need to do is kind of step through the variance requirements.
Okay.
And I guess I'd appreciate if you kind of address each of them. You don't have to read verbatim, but you can if you wish, whatever is easiest.
Okay. You want me to read the proposed?
Sure.
1, the proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest because the subdivided lot will meet the size requirement and frontage needed to build another house. The spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved because there wouldn't be a significant change in the surroundings in comparison to similar houses on the street. There is a substantial justice in granting the variance because another house will produce additional tax income to the town. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished because the subdivided lot is equal to many of the surrounding lots, if not bigger. And literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance will result in an unnecessary hardship. No fair and substantial relationship exists between the general purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property because the old and new lot, if allowed, will each have the same or larger frontage than some of the existing lots on our street. The proposed use is a reasonable one because the division of the current lot into 2 lots still would be similar in size to the surrounding lots.
And I certainly can, looking at some of the adjacent lots and also ones in the street in back of you, that's pretty clearly the case.
They're a lot smaller, a few of
There's
them.
homes there with smaller acreage and much smaller frontage, definitely.
Yeah. I think there's 3 on the street that only have 100 feet. First couple houses on the same side as mine.
About where would you be looking to draw the line between the 2 lots?
Probably right on the other side of my driveway. My driveway is to the left of my house. I don't know if you can see it. I don't have my glasses. But it's pretty much just what is empty now that you can see that I'm looking to subdivide into. Mark, the neighbor, has a right-of-way to get to his house. Maybe possibly they would allow me to use some of the right-of-way that already exists, for some of the frontage as a driveway in. If not, I could do my own right-of-way so that the lot would be accessible from the street.
So the required frontage per zoning is 150 feet.
Correct.
You have
52.
252.22. Oh, I love the decimal places. Would you be, in order to keep one lot to zoning code and one lot not, would you be amenable to, if we granted it, to have a provision in the variance granting that said that one lot would have to, I don't care which, would have to have 150 feet frontage and the second lot, the remainder?
Yes,
That's okay?
yes.
Okay.
Probably have to make the existing house, the one with 150, just for setbacks.
Right.
Kind of
You'd have to
angle,
have your
like angle.
setbacks, yeah, because you want to make sure your house still meets the setbacks wherever the lot line is put.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any questions, folks?
Does it looks like the paving of the road does go all the way down, like almost to the end of the cul-de-sac.
It does.
So
Yeah, the cul-de-sac
so
is
if you
paved.
were to divide off, the other lot should still be able to have a driveway
Yes,
that
it
goes
should.
into the paving.
Yeah, there's enough room, barely, but yeah, there's enough room.
Barely counts.
What is the neighbor's easement? Is that the circular driveway?
Where the cul-de-sac ends and the property goes to keeps going straight, Mark's house is behind there, you can
Is
see.
that the 53-36? Like he goes in?
And he goes in alongside the end where I want to subdivide that piece of land, his driveway.
So is his easement over your land?
No, it's on the neighbor across this. I think it's the Dickinsons. I'm not sure.
Because obviously you'd have to leave that open.
That's why I didn't know if possibly where it's already a right-of-way for that neighbor, maybe he wouldn't mind. But like I said, there is room still at the end to put a driveway so that you wouldn't even have to go on any of the neighbor across the street's land.
Okay. Given that we don't have a lot of questions, let me open it up to the public. Is anyone out there speaking in favor of this, or do we have any letters in favor?
I have no letters or emails.
No letters or emails. Does anybody out there wish to speak against this proposal? Okay, would you please come up to the microphone, and we're going to need your name as well. And remember, it's not the most sensitive microphones, so stay close.
Hi, I'm Mark Boutot, and I live at 13 Springview Terrace. And I noticed she had mentioned about using that easement, which that I'm very against. She didn't mention any of that, but my biggest concern is to have some kind of buffer zone, like a no-cut buffer zone up against my lot line there,
So
like a 25-foot.
that's not anything we can grant or
Okay.
deal with. If we grant this variance, the applicant will have to go to the planning board to actually have the subdivision created. And that's really a planning board function.
Okay. I didn't know. I just
So
want to make sure.
just so you know,
Yeah.
if we grant this,
All right.
there'll
Just,
be a
so I'll
planning
have
board
another.
meeting and you'll be notified.
Okay. And the other thing I noticed you were saying about the cul-de-sac, that's not the driveway. The cul-de-sac ends in that red circle there.
Right.
That's another driveway, that
Yeah,
other
that's
bigger,
a
yeah.
big circle is the neighbor's driveway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's really,
And your easement runs basically outside of?
yeah,
your
it
lot?
follows that blue line down to my lot,
Right,
which is, I can't see it, 53.
5336. But your easement is over 53-34,
Yes.
because it's not an extension of the public right of way. It's an easement.
Right,
on the
it's,
other
yeah, it's an
line.
easement, it's not, it's deeded to our house.
And I just want to make sure, because
Just, yeah.
sometimes like the
It's
pavement
not like a
stops and
public-
the right of way keeps going like a paper street.
It's not like a public easement type thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of room for a driveway in there. It would have to be pushed up. Where the town comes down and pushes the snow, mostly right where a driveway could go is pretty much where the town pushes their snow. So they have to figure out what they're gonna do with that, but.
And again, that's mainly a planning board kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also, as part of any kind of planning board application, it's conceivable that in order to make the upper driveway, kind of more usable, that she might grant an easement onto the lower property for the driveway to go across, just to move it down. Not suggesting that, I'm just saying,
There's a giant tree there that could come down that would block, like you're saying, to cut across my property. There's 2 big trees at the end of my driveway.
okay. So seems like your main primary issue is can't use your easement.
Yeah, definitely.
So as long as that doesn't happen, are you okay with this?
Well, and then, like I said, I have to come back for for a buffer.
He wants privacy.
Yeah, I don't want,
Where the house
we
would
live
be
down,
built.
we've been there for like over 30 years with, no houses around us, so it's
So
kind of.
you're aware that she can clear cut that lot
I
tomorrow?
know, yeah, she said,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, but if you're granting her a variance, I can't get a variance for a no-cut buffer, that's my,
It's not something we can grant variances for. That's something the planning board
okay.
could
yeah.
potentially impose on any subdivision.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there would have to be setbacks anyhow. Was it 25 feet?
There's no residential setbacks. There's setbacks for structures, but there's no no-cut.
Structures.
Right.
There's no no-cut buffers on residential property.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, because I do that for work, so I know,
Oh, okay.
I know the rules, but.
Right. Anything else for us?
Not that I can remember. No, that's about it, I guess.
Okay. Is there somebody else who wanted to speak, I believe? Yes, no?
No.
Okay,
That's the missus.
okay.
The extra portion of your land, is that basically all just dry, wooded?
Yeah,
not
it's just all,
swamp or
it's
wetlands
not,
or-
there's all trees there. It's
Yeah.
not cleared in it at all.
It's not wet, it's damp. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like standing water or
It's a
anything.
hill, like it kind of
Yeah.
goes down to where.
I have a
this property-
culvert that, it does get wet. Drainage from Smith Corner Road comes down through my property. You can see it better. I don't know if you can see it. I have well, some of it's in a culvert and the other half is a open ditch. But it runs through my property and it gets wet there sometimes with a lot of rain and a lot of runoff from Smith Corner Road comes through there.
Yep, I can see that.
So the house would probably have to be closer to the property line of my house anyways, if it's
Yeah, that's what we were saying. Chances are it's going to be pushed up
Anyways,
towards you
yeah.
anyways, yeah.
just stay high out of the wet.
Okay. If you're all set, you can go back or you can stay there if you're comfy.
That's comfortable.
Do we have any other input from the audience this evening? From the board? Any final comments?
No,
Then I'm going to call this case closed, and we're going to go into deliberations about it. You're welcome to stay. We just can't take new testimony. Okay? This is the ZBA gavel. I'm told we're the only ones who use it.
Has the power now.
Sorry, I'm on a power trip. So, okay,
Don't even say that in jest.
would somebody make a motion?
Yes, I move to grant the request for a variance from Article 5, Table 220-32E, to allow the parcel at 11 Springview Terrace to be subdivided into 2 lots. One lot having, as was expressed here, 150 feet of frontage, and the other lot with 102.22 feet of frontage. Reading on, the amount of frontage of each lot as indicated in this motion shall be the same frontage amounts has any application that is filed with the Plastow Planning Board for subdivision approval. Any discrepancies in the frontage amounts voids this variance. Any other conditions that the board may add from this discussion at the public hearing?
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Jim?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, as far as this frontage variance goes, I think the applicant made a pretty good case that this is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. It's not out of the ordinary. In fact, a large lot like this is very out of the ordinary for that neighborhood.
Yep.
I don't think it's contrary to the public interest, because I don't think there is a public interest in oversized, underutilized lots. Spirit and intent is preserved because it ends, these two lots end up being equivalent or larger than at least half of the surrounding lots. It's not dissimilar from other properties in that area. There's substantial justice in granting it because, you know, if we didn't grant it, the town as a whole doesn't gain anything by this. And the applicant, you know, loses a lot, and the opportunity to build a second house. Whereas if we grant this, the town doesn't lose anything. But I'm not saying that the values of surrounding properties will be diminished by this subdivision. We haven't heard any evidence it would, and again, just because it ends up, they both end up being equivalent, plus or minus to surrounding lots. I just can't see it being diminishing the property values. Speak up, guys.
We all agree with you.
This isn't usual. Literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance, I think, do result in an unnecessary hardship. Because, you know, this is, you know, clearly an issue that goes with the land. This is a hardship issue.
Definitely an unusual size lot for that street.
It is.
It's too bad when they planned it out, they didn't make Springview Terrace a little longer, and they'd have no problems here. When you look at the layout,
True.
everyone would have frontage.
Somebody was trying to minimize asphalt.
Yep.
You guys have any other input? You ready to vote on this?
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Dee, would you call the motion?
Peter Bealow,
Yes.
Jim Unger,
Yes.
Michael Murray,
Yes.
Jim O'Brien.
Yes.
Your vote is 4-0-0, and the motion passes.
Okay, again, you have to wait 30 days to apply for a building permit.
No.
No.
it's
Or
the
to go to the
planning
planning board.
Planning
I
board.
apologize. Sorry. Okay. Dee, would you call the next case?
Give me just a half a second, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Case number 23-15, a request from Sean and Ashley Tinsley for a variance from Article 5, Table 22032I, to allow a shed to be placed 3 feet from the side property line where 25 feet is the minimum required. The property is located at 98 Newton Road, Tax Map 69, Lot 41, in the RCR zoning district. The property owners of records are Ashley Kusurga Tinsley and Sean Tinsley.
Would you please come up?
Evening, gentlemen. How we doing?
Doing great.
Good, good. So we're requesting.
Could I ask you to state your name and address for the record, please? each of
Sean
you?
Tinsley, 98 Newton Road,
Okay.
and my wife Ashley Tinsley. Please, same address.
Great, and I'd like to make the point that, again, we have a four-person board. You're okay going forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
So we're requesting a variance for the shed, obviously, like she just stated, 3 feet from the property line next to our neighbors, Steve and Faye Belanger. We understand that the variance is 25 feet, but we're giving with the small lot that we have, the area that we want to put in is the only suitable or logical place that we can put it. We do have pictures to illustrate why for the.
Put those up on the board for you.
Be aware that any pictures you give us, we got to keep?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
They go into your permanent record.
Yes, sir.
I did, yes. I did two views of the photometry, one up close to the lot and one far, so you could get the,
Yep.
feel of the neighborhood. Which one would you like me to put up?
Put up the close one, please. I know we have it. Okay. Thank you so much.
So as the pictures will illustrate, we do have a small lot with a little bit of vegetation, trees. One of the other spots that we could put it on has a very inclined slope, at least 4 to 6 degrees. I'm not a landscaper by any means, but it'd be tough to level out on that area. The other area would be towards the right side of our house, which has a little bit of wetlands into it. There is standing water there, so obviously we wouldn't be able to place it there. The other logical place would be next to Stephen Fay's fence, butt up against to that, well, 3 feet from there, and it'd be able to be leveled out. We're trying to limit it from any tree cutting or anything because we love the vegetation. Obviously, in the summertime, we like our privacy, so we don't want to cut any trees to be able to just put a shed in there. Plus, we want to keep all that natural wildlife, preserved.
Yeah, you probably get a fair number of deer and turkeys up your way.
We got a big bobcat.
Really?
Yeah, at least 50 to 60 pounds. We have a picture of it. We actually got on the game cam, ring camera. We get coyotes every night, some skunks, deer.
Okay. Before we step through the variance criteria, does anybody have any questions?
I know everyone else hasn't seen the pictures yet, but the proposed area over here on the other side of the fence, is that your neighbor's shed?
Yes.
Which is like right against the fence?
Exactly, and I actually mentioned that too. So they've actually been there for 32 years. So I don't know if it was grandfather claused in or when the bylaws were in effect. So
Sometimes things just happen in prehistory.
exactly. So, and I did speak with Faye Belanger, who is actually a neighbor. She's not opposed. Obviously, she's not here tonight against us putting the shed in their area.
Okay. Well, then, in that case, let's go through the 5 variance criteria.
Okay.
And the reason we do that, just so you know, the state laws actually set these variance criteria. We didn't just kind of make them up on the fly. And-
Okay.
And according to the RSA's, in order to grant a variance, we have to show that all 5 are met. Okay.
Okay. So proposed variance will not be contrary to the public interest because shed will not alter any character of the local population, nor will the variance threaten public health, safety, or welfare. Spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved because shed won't affect or hinder any of the neighbor's property or land. There is suitable justice in granting the variance because only on a acre lot and don't want to cut any trees down to preserve our property, anything natural as possible with most of the woods. The values of the surrounding properties will not be diminished because sheds help provide storage and needs of tools, equipment needed to fix property. We are only 100 yards from Brady's, which would not affect anything because obviously they have a junkyard there, so I don't think it's going to affect their property anyway, shape,
Is
or
that
form.
Brandy Brow you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes. And where am I? The fifth one.
Number
The-
5.
Oh, yes, the enforcement of provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. We only have an acre lot with wetlands and more than half is woods with lands that slope. We want to conserve as much vegetation on our property as possible, animals, habitat on our property.
Any other questions, board members?
I would assume somewhere out there is your septic system. Do you know about where that is?
Yeah, so it's right, so there's the back deck, and it's, where you can see the set of stairs coming down the back deck, and it's right to the right of that.
So it's like behind the house,
Yeah,
which means you don't really want to have any building
exactly.
Yes,
on that.
no.
And what are the, in your package here, what are these pictures?
That's the shed.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So it's like a prefab that you're putting in, or is it already there?
No, it's
Already there.
no, it's actually at my parents'
Oh,
house.
okay.
Yes. So they're selling their
So
house,
it'll be moved. Yep.
and as a wedding gift, part of our wedding gift that we got married this year, he said, "Well, we're gonna give you the shed if you can get it moved."
Get it moved there, yep.
So
Okay, do we, let me see if there's anybody out there speaking in favor of this, or do we have any emails?
I have no emails or letters.
Okay, is there anybody out there speaking against this variance proposal? None, okay. Board members, do we have any last questions?
No questions?
Any final comments before I close this? Okay, then I'm going to close the hearing, and you're welcome to stick around, see how deliberations go, but as I mentioned, for the first one, I can't take any more inputs.
okay.
So, there. And congratulations on the wedding and all that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have a motion to make?
Gotta find it.
Yes, I move to grant the request for a variance from Article 5, Table 220-32I, to allow a shed to be placed 3 feet from the left side of the property line at 98 Newton Road, where 25-foot minimum is the minimum required setback with the following conditions. This placement of the shed must meet all other setbacks and requirements of the ICR district. The applicant shall provide a location certification plan prepared by a state of New Hampshire licensed surveyor to confirm the shed is properly located no closer than 3 feet to the side property line.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Unger seconds.
Thank you.
And just in case people wonder why I don't make motions, it's kind of not traditional for chairs to make motions. Not quite sure why that's true, but it is. Okay, so any discussion before we go through the variance criteria?
Given the slope, the wetlands, and especially to me, the septic location, it almost seems like
They're kind of
the
limited.
logical place for the shed is that back left corner somewhere. I guess the neighbor's shed is pretty close to the same area.
Yeah. I agree with that. So proposed variance will be contrary to the public interest. Really doesn't alter any, external character of the lot.
Yeah, and if the neighbor isn't here complaining, that's a good sign.
That's a good sign. The spirit and intent of the ordinance is preserved. Well, it won't, hinder anybody else. And if we didn't grant it, these folks would have to consider putting it in small wetlands, which is kind of a no-no, or have to deal with a moderately sloped site, which is not fun, which requires more work and effort. And they can't just put it in back of the house because that's where the septic is. So that's difficult. There's substantial justice in granting the variance. It's a small lot. In order to kind of minimize tree cuts and such, which, people like for privacy. There's limited places to put this. I don't believe we have any evidence, I didn't hear any of the board members speak up that they think that there's an issue in the values of the surrounding properties.
No.
It's even, frankly, a nicely put together shed. Literal enforcement of the provisions would result in unnecessary hardship. I mean, definitely, they've got wetlands issues, they've got slope issues, and that's, that is unique to this particular property. So, for me at least, I think they met this.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
You ready to take a vote?
Yes, sir.
D.
Jim Unger,
Yes.
Michael Murray,
Yes.
Jim O'Brien,
Yes.
Peter Bealow.
Yes.
Your vote is 4-0-0 and the motion passes.
Okay. Oh, and before we lose anybody else, I will mention it for the camera, if nothing else. We're always looking for alternate members of this board. Meets one night a month. And some nights we don't even have cases, so we don't even show up. So anyhow, if somebody has time, Thursday evenings, we can use an alternate. So have a good one.
Thank you so very much.
Okay. Dee, would you call the third case?
For this next case, the board will be acting in the capacity of the Building Code Board of Appeals. Number 23-16, a request from Sweet Hill Farm LLC for an appeal of the administrative decision of the building inspector, code enforcement officer, failing to act on a building permit filed on September 27, 2023. The subject property of the building permit application is 82 Newton Road, tax map 68, lot 8, in both the LDR and ICR zoning districts. The applicant is the property owner of record.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
For the record?
Yeah.
You are?
I am Dan Kane, a resident of 64 Main Street, Plastow, New Hampshire, and the owner of Sweet Hill Farm located at 82 Newton Road, Plastow, New Hampshire.
And you're okay going forward with a four-person board?
I am.
Okay. And you realize we are not working as a zoning board of adjustment. We are here as the Building Code Board of Appeals.
I do.
And over the last few months, we've learned that that's a significant difference.
Yes.
So what's going on, Mr. Kane? What are we
So-
looking to do?
I filed for a building permit to enclose some existing outdoor space on a existing building that's been up for 5 years. I got a response saying I needed to have a full set of engineered and architect prepared and full set of stamped engineer plans to enclose a space that has no structural, I'm not impacting any structure. There's nothing in the building policies or the permitting or the building permit that requires a full set of engineered or construction documents. There's not anything even in the building code that requires that. It's limited to whatever the local jurisdiction applies. And as you know, my view is I've got a residential use property. My permits are residential.
Did the building inspector respond within 30 days?
Yes, he asked for, he told me he needed a full set of engineered plans. It would have cost more than the work itself. The work, it cost $1,800.
Did you respond to the building inspector in any way?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I don't believe that was a legitimate request. You can look, I've looked at virtually every building permit issued in the last 2 years. This is the only one. And it's a pattern with the building inspector. And we all know what's going on here. And so it's just one thing after another. And that's just my view. You guys may have different views, and I respect that, but I just see this as one bad act after another.
Could you clarify for me about the work to be done? The way I read the documentation, it looks like the framework is already there from an existing building and you're just putting walls on?
That's correct, Mr. Murray.
You can see the picture.
Oh,
It's basically a canopy roof that already has structural posts.
Has a
And they're
full
filling in.
2 LVL beam running across, single LVL beam running across the edge that the posts.
okay, so none of those walls would be load bearing?
No,
But we're here to determine if the building inspector, his actions were reasonable or not.
Okay.
So while we have photographs, you know, when I look at the application for the building permit, you know, that kind of information was lacking.
What was like this little sketch in the picture, was that part of what the building inspector sees?
I believe so, yeah. But that doesn't even tell what building it's on.
Yeah.
I defined the building in the permit. And again, you can look at the hundreds of permits I've looked at. These are sketches. People take pictures, people don't take pictures. There's an administrative practice that's been going on in this town for at least the 20 years I've lived here, which is sketches are appropriate and you know, some level of detail of work, which I believe I provided. I might have provided more detail in this than when I built the original building. Again, I'm not trying to impact or build something or address something or alter something that changes the structural integrity of that building, the shear of that building. All I want to do is prevent sand from blowing into my clean room.
You know,
And again, 30 days means 30 days.
and he responded in 30 days, and
He has
then
to
you walked
act,
away.
he has to act on it in 30 days. He doesn't, that's not the term. He has to act on it in 30 days. He has to approve it or deny it in 30 days. Telling me he needs a full set of engineered plans drawn by an architect is beyond the pale.
Well, again, I can only speak on how I would have reacted, but I would have gone and have more communications and said, essentially, you know, I would have told him exactly which building. I would have probably showed it to him. I would have shown him pictures of the existing building.
He's been in the building.
He's been in, how many buildings do you have?
A dozen?
Right. And I don't think the
okay.
building inspector knows.
He does, that's not. You're speculating on what he knows or what he doesn't know. He's been in that building. He's
Until I
walked
saw the
right by
photographs,
this.
I didn't know which building that was.
Well, you haven't been all over the farm like I have, and nor is it your job to be all over the farm.
Right. I only go there as a customer
Yep.
occasionally.
Yep.
Well, some-
this-
I know somewhere I was reading, there was a response from the building inspector that said that in lieu of stamped architectural drawings, he would just accept something from the builder, giving him the information he needed.
I don't recall getting any of that.
Was that in one of the
I
exhibits?
thought that was in one,
It's in the package here. It's
It is.
It's for, is that for that structure?
Exhibit A in our packet. It's a letter from Mr. Foy to Mr. Kane,
Exhibit A.
When was that letter dated?
November 27th.
Yeah, I mean, that's 20 days after I filed,
But it,
and it's a denial of the permit.
And I find Exhibit A.
I don't think it's Exhibit A. Oh, I'm sorry. Some of these, some are numbered.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So basically, November 27th, which is when he officially denied it. But he also reached out saying, rather than the plans, just have the builder give him the information.
What information was that?
I'm really having a hard time finding that.
you want to see it?
Yeah, good. Got it. Okay.
Calculations to snow load, occupancy capacity, and egress route. In lieu of the required plans, I'm willing to consider construction plans that contain the same information, just, prepared by the builder.
That's, you know as well as I do is, as an engineer needs to calculate snow load. That's not and this is an existing roof.
Right, well, that's what I don't understand is, it's a 2018 building, isn't it?
Yes,
So it's a building that was built under a building permit in 2018,
Right.
inspected by a building inspector, and found to meet the requirements in 2018. I'm not seeing how the snow load will change on a roof.
nor would the occupancy. It is what it is.
Depending on what walls you're putting up, ingress and such could change, but ingress, egress kind of thing.
There's five existing means of egress in that building now. Under the code, I only need one.
Oh, you need two.
Oh, one additional to the one I have.
Right, because basically this existing door would now be blocked in, but you're putting an additional
A door, right. I'm just,
on this sketch.
yes.
But again, I guess my question is, did the building inspector get this sketch showing?
Oh,
the
yes.
door and all
Oh,
that?
yeah. I have to file it with the building permit application.
So that's the existing door, and it just leads into this area, and now you have a new door.
And
The original, the existing building, I've never been there, is that just like a wide open shop area for processing?
it's like half garage and then half processing.
So there's a wall.
There is. There's a clean area where we sanitize the vegetables. And then there's a garage where we actually bring everything in the back. We bring everything in two ways. If it's like root vegetables or anything that I don't really have to clean before storage, I bring them in through the garage.
But I guess all I'm looking at is the fact that if people, employees were in that either room, there's two doors for them to get out, no
Yes.
matter what.
Yes,
And even once this door still remains, but with walls, it'll be blocked off. You now have a new door right there.
yes. So in context too is I have an existing valid building permit approved by the building inspector for work I'm doing in that building now, inside. Same thing. No change of footprint, nothing. Proved it without issue. Inside that existing building.
Okay.
What are you doing?
I'm extending a floor and putting in another cooler, if you will,
So it's not changing.
no, it's not changing the footprint. It's not, no structural changes, nothing.
I don't really know, the business, but when you're in whatever your busy season is, how many people do you think are working inside that building?
Two.
Kind of
Two.
what I would have figured.
Yeah.
Mr. O'Brien, any questions?
No.
Okay. Do we have anyone out there speaking in favor of this? Do we have anybody speaking against or have questions about this? Please come up. And Dee, do we have any emails?
I have no emails or letters.
That one's busy. Here, you can take it.
Sorry. Good evening. My name is William Warren. I am an attorney at Donahue, Tucker, and Shindella, town council, and tonight counsel for the building inspector. Eric Mayer regrets that he was unable to be here this evening, but asked that I step in for him tonight. The building inspector objects to the administrative appeal that has been filed. The ZBA needs to bear in mind, in this case, what the building inspector was actually provided with. And that was limited to these 3 pages. The 2 pages were the application. The third was this sketch, which realistically is an existing condition sketch, not a plan of the structure that the applicant proposes to actually build here. The permit was essentially incomplete. The application itself states on the first page in red that all applications must include 2 sets of drawings or plans and/or detailed scope of work, and 3 sets to scale for a commercial building. This is a commercial structure. While we understand that the applicant's position is that this is a primarily residential property, that simply is not the case. While there may be a house on this property, the overwhelming use that this property is put to is commercial. It is agricultural in nature. And so the building permit in this case did require 3 sets of full plans to scale, which were not provided. The applicant essentially filed a floor plan and expected the building inspector to understand what that meant and what was actually being proposed. The building inspector did not have the benefit of all of the materials that the applicant has provided to the ZBA, these 14 exhibits, this long narrative about what the applicant is actually proposing. The building inspector did not have the benefit of all those materials to put this into context, to explain what was going on. He was dealing with 3 pages, 2 of which are hardly descriptive at all, and the third, again, is at best a floor plan. The applicant has claimed that the building inspector is not permitted to request additional construction documents, which is incorrect. The town recently adopted a new set of permitting policies and procedures that was adopted by the select board in November, before a decision was actually due from the building inspector. In those policies and procedures, they specify that the building inspector is authorized to exercise all powers and authorities set forth in the state building code, that applicants are encouraged to consult with the Department of Building safety prior to submitting applications to avoid this exact kind of situation. It provides that the building inspector and the Department of Building Safety may request additional information if they deem it necessary. And it was necessary in this case because the applicant provided so little information. The building inspector had really no idea exactly what was being proposed. An enclosure of a patio. That was it. The building inspector wasn't provided with anticipated foot traffic, wasn't provided with any information about the structure, the roof, the snow load. This is a safety issue. While there may only be 2 employees working in that building at a time, it only takes one of them to be injured. And that is the entire purpose of the state building code, of this permitting process, is to ensure that these structures are built soundly. The International Building Code, which is incorporated by reference into the state building code, requires that the applicant for a building permit describe the work to be done and submit construction documents, including plans of what's actually supposed to be done. Construction documents are defined to include plans that show the design, location, and physical characteristics of the elements of the project necessary for obtaining a building permit. Again, this is so the building inspector can confirm that this will be built to code. Now, I understand that the applicant has taken issue with the requirement for an architect or an engineer's stamp on these plans. We note that that comes straight out of the International Building Code. Section 107.1 expressly authorizes the building inspector to require additional construction documents prepared by a registered design professional. A registered design professional is a defined term. It is somebody who is licensed in the profession under the laws of the state or jurisdiction where they're located. In this case, that means an architect or an engineer. When the building inspector did issue a decision on November 27th, which was the 60th day, which is the date required for commercial structures, he did note that he would be willing to consider different plans. That was with the benefit of having reviewed all of these new materials that were provided. The fact of the matter is that the applicant could have avoided this appeal by picking up the phone, calling the building inspector and talking to him, finding out what information was actually required, providing this additional information, a simple explanation of what was going on, identifying the actual building where this construction was proposed. Instead, the applicant, after receiving a request from the building inspector for additional information, waited over 30 days and filed an appeal with this board. At this point, the ZBA is sitting as the Building Code Board of Appeals, which is an appellate body under RSA 674-34. Now, normally, the ZBA, like it has been previously this evening, is the finder of fact, but that's not the case tonight. Tonight, the ZBA's consideration is limited to the universe of facts that were before the building inspector at the time of the decision, in this case, at the time of the appeal. And that universe of facts was limited to these 3 pages. The building inspector could not reasonably be expected to grant a building permit without asking for more information to ensure that this construction would be built to code and would be safe for the employees working at this property. The building inspector's interpretation and application of the state building code were both lawful and reasonable in this case and should therefore be affirmed. Thank you.
Do you have any
I do.
thoughts on that?
I do. So The IBC, the IRC have the same provision with submittal documents. And I'm going to read it to you. It says, submittal documents consisting of construction documents and other data shall be submitted in 2 or more sets with each application for a permit. I did submit 2 sets. I don't know what they did with the other one. The construction documents shall be prepared by a registered design professional where required by the statutes of the jurisdiction in which the project is to be constructed. There's no requirement for the town of Plastow for design professional prepared documents. It's not in the application. It's not in the building permitting policies that were in existence the day I filed that permit. Talking about a change in the building permitting policies 17 days after I filed the permit is irrelevant. I would have never had the chance to file a building permit with those policies. They weren't even proposed the day I filed that building permit. So how could I be held to a standard for new policies? Doesn't make a lot of sense. And just the idea that the building inspector didn't know the building he was improving, he approved a permit for it 7 months ahead of time to do some additional work. I identified the building the same way. I know exactly what building I'm talking about. He's even used the bathroom in that building. He walks by it to inspect the garage. There's no mystery here. So I think I followed the policies and the practices inside. This is not a complicated issue. And the idea that I'm going to pick up the phone and talk to the building inspector, when in my view, I've had to beat back a fraudulent stop work order, I've had to beat back other aspects that I think are just unfair, that's not going to happen. We don't have that relationship. I expect when I file a building permit, I'm treated like everyone else, and I'm not. I can, and when this thing all starts going to the next level and the next level above that, that's all there. That's all there. So.
Questions, comments, guys?
Yeah, it's more of a question in my mind is what happens when you file the permit under one set of rules, the rules change in midpoint, which applies?
I'm not sure the rules really changed because we reference the IBC, which
Right.
allows that.
The building code normally will allow the building inspector to ask for lots of things that he doesn't always have to ask for.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be written somewhere saying you need engineered plans. If the building inspector thinks that the building is technical enough to require engineered plans, he can ask for that. But when we're dealing with a pre-existing 2018 roof that met code in 2018, and we're dealing with building non-load bearing wood frame curtain walls, I think they both could get together a little bit and just say, oh, well, make sure you space things this on center and give me a thumbnail sketch showing that. And it's the lack of communication we're dealing with here, because this seems like a cut and dried, easy case to me, but both of you are going at each other.
And I think that's a fair comment, is if he had asked me, can you send me another drawing, I would have done so. When I get that I need a full set of engineered plans, I needed to try, that's what I got. I didn't get like, hey, can you send me? And he's been out and seen the construction. He's suggested, hey, you might want to do this and do that. We do it. It would have been easy just to say, hey, can you show me a framing plan? Or can you,
Right. Well, that's what I'm
do
saying.
something like that? I would have done it.
Because, I see them, just looking at a floor plan doesn't show you much. I know you did mention 2x6s and all that, and, certainly nothing wrong with 2x6 curtain wall. But it seems to me like maybe a little more info from you and getting together would solve all these things, whether you want to or not.
Yeah, I have to go through the process. I live in the town. I have to file building permits if I want to do work on my property. I don't mind being reasonable. What I What I object to is when things are unreasonable.
I mean,
So
we allowed.
if he wants to issue me a permit and wants to have a better sketch or something like that, I'm amenable to that.
Right.
Yes, you can ask questions.
Well,
of
I
them,
guess my question,
But remember our position here. We're only really dealing with, did he make an appropriate decision with the 3 pages he had in front of him?
right. Okay. I guess what I don't understand is the roof. I'm trying to learn, it's a structure that was approved in 2018.
The building inspector sitting beside me started last year. This is the application. This is the universe of
File
information.
on that building.
Sorry?
There's a file on that building.
I understand that, but where does it say it's that building on this application?
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. There's no identifying information. The description here, the additional information is enclosing 29-foot 3-inch by 10-foot 3-inch existing patio on garage/AG storage building. How does that specifically identify this building to apprise the building inspector to look at that file, that previous building permit, to know what he was dealing with here? I mean, the applicant didn't even provide the photo that has been submitted as Exhibit 1. If that photo, that was not submitted to the building inspector. Without the benefit of even that photo, I don't know how the building inspector could have known from these 3 pages exactly which building out of these 12 different buildings we're talking about.
Maybe because he approved a building permit for the same building on January 26th. It was described the same way. He issued it. Changes to existing building, agricultural storage use only. Exhibit 4 of your.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I've been through my file. There's enough in it. The original construction of this building is in there
Oh, I'm sure it is.
prominently.
So at the risk of digressing a little, which I have a bad habit of doing, this is the one and only time I wish I was President Obama, where I could get a Cambridge cop and a homeowner together over a beer, to settle an issue about an arrest. So that's a unique position for me, but I can't do that. I can only rule on what's in front of me. Do we have anybody else?
If I could, the building inspector would like to speak himself.
I'm sorry, what?
The building inspector would like to speak himself, would just like to confirm that essentially what he knew at the time of this application.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just speak into the mic.
Rick Floyd, building inspector. When I received that application, there was nothing but a square sketch drawn, a square, a rectangle. That was it. I didn't know it was an application to enclose a patio. I didn't know which exactly building it was. There are multiple buildings there. I didn't know if the intent was to close this and put seating out there. These are all things that are in the commercial code. These are all things I have to look at constantly, okay? I didn't know if this was a new roof being put on it or if it was existing. I didn't realize there was an existing roof over it. If that's the case, I need to know the snow loads, how it's designed, what the size of the roof rafters are. I don't know what the intent of the whole thing is. I know Mr. Kane wants to try to build a brewery in there. I didn't know if this was a patio that he wants to enclose to put seating in, where it could require a seating plan for proper egress and spacing between tables. There were so many factors that came into play. And I wrote him an email requesting this information. And it is a commercial building. It may be on residential / agricultural land, but it is still a commercial building. And that was when I wrote to Mr. Kane and I requested additional information. Because I don't have any of that. One little square drawn on a piece of paper and requesting and closing a patio tells me nothing, absolutely nothing. There was nothing unreasonable about requesting that information.
Let me see if there's anybody else who wants to chime in on this. Is anybody speaking in favor of this application tonight? Please come up to a mic.
Could I get your name and address for the record, please?
Yep, it's Craig Lambert. I'm speaking on behalf.
I need your address as well, sir.
Yep, it's 35 Hazen,
I'm sorry?
35 Hazen,
And what town is that in?
Table. So,
Hazen, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Just trying to make sure I
H-A-Z.
have the record right.
Hazen.
Thank you.
So, I'm speaking on behalf of this because I think that according to the building inspector's job description, it specifically lays out that he's supposed to work with people in town. He's supposed to work with the homeowner. He's supposed to work with business people. It's not up to him to go out and chase this building inspector around. And if the building inspector has questions, he's already been out to the property before. He should be able to go out to the property, speak to Mr. Kane, who's there all the time, ask him what is happening, and resolve the issue. But there's been a problem with the building inspector. With, when you said earlier, I liked what you said about your reference to Obama and bringing them together and making this work. I completely believe that you're right. But the point of it is that it's his job to do that. It's specifically written in his job description to do exactly what you said, to resolve these issues and to resolve these problems. This isn't the first issue with him. It's not going to be the last. But it says in there what he's supposed to do. Had he done his job, according to his job description, this would not be an issue. You would not be sitting here today. Mr. Kane would not have to go through these issues. But that's why there's a problem here, is because if he went by his job descriptions, which are considered essential job descriptions, specifically laid out, this would not be a problem. You wouldn't have these communication issues. And that's where the beginning part of this ends. And we'll see what Mr. Kane has to say in reference to that. I'd like to hear what he has to say. But the guy has, if you look at the farm that he's done, right? Look at all the structures that he's built and how he's trying to bring the economy in the town and bring revenue to town, and the nice buildings that he's built over there. I think he's done quite a bit of work over there. And like he said, the building inspector's already been over there. And I agree with Jim. Jim's right. He's already inspected the building. He already understands what the snow loads are. There's no load-bearing walls that are going in. I mean, if he didn't understand it or he had questions, it's his job to go out and try to work with the homeowner or the business people or the construction person. That's laid out in his job description. If he had issues, he should have gone out, tried to resolve them before it wasted all of your time. That's why you're here. That's where the waste of time comes in. And that's a fact. You can pull his job description. You can see what it says. Had he done his job, you would not be here today. You would not have had to waste this time. That's the bottom line. That's a fact. Undisputable fact. Thank you for your time.
Did you want to respond to that, Mr. Kane?
I mean, my general feeling is it takes two to tango, you know, and you know, I've been down the path trying to work with the building inspector that proved to be somewhat fruitless. But, you know, public servants have a job. Their job is to work with the public. I have a job as a homeowner, as a landowner to, you know, follow the rules. That's what I believe I followed. I'm going to take one exception to what people are saying. These are not commercial buildings, you know? I'm not agricultural is a permitted residential use in the ICR district where this building is. I'll argue that all the way to the Supreme Court. This idea that you know, agriculture is a commercial enterprise, I'm sorry, it's just not. It's not baked into the zoning ordinance. It's not baked into the RSAs. That to me is just a non-starter. And I respect the fact that people have a different views, and that's why I think these permits. I take the position that should have been acted on in 30 days. That's my view, and that's really the issue before you. Is should the permit have been acted on in 30 days? That's my view. It should have been because it's a residential use. I think as to all the construction documents and the idea that I've got a 300 square foot place that I'm going to have a private brewery on is, I think, a little bit preposterous. You know, the building's not going to be used as anything but what it's being used for. If I want to use something for a brewery, it's going to be another building and then another time. You know, I think the tail grows in the telling on that particular issue. So that's my last thing I'll say.
Okay.
So I guess my question would be, if you were given all the facts up front, if you knew what building it was, if you were giving a picture knowing that they were enclosing a pre-existing structurally stable roof built in 2018, would you have required architectural plans and such?
No problem. It would have been no problem. I had no information to go on. That's why I wrote the letter requesting the information.
Well, the letter did state you needed architecturally stamped plans. I do understand Mr. Kane's point. My brother's a PE. I used to work for him. It costs a lot of money to get stuff done.
I would hasten to point out that that is the language that is used in the International Building Code. That is the actual code requirement.
As I said, the building inspector is allowed to do a lot of things, but doesn't have to do them.
Understood. I'm just stating that the request tracked the International Building Code, and the question here is whether the building inspector correctly interpreted and applied the state building code. And so it is, I think, relevant what the state building code allows. And certainly I take your point, and I take the applicant's point, that in a lot of instances, it is probably unnecessary to provide fully engineered plans. But like the building inspector said, he didn't know what he was working with. The application simply did not provide enough information. And so that's why he sent the request, in the hopes of receiving information. And the request, I know, was sent well within even the 30-day time period that the applicant is talking about here. The application was submitted on September 27th, and the request for additional information was sent back to the applicant on October 12th. If the applicant at that point had reached out back to the building inspector and provided all of this information that has been provided to the ZBA, this whole thing could have been avoided.
In Mr. Kane's defense, the letter went out to him saying, I need structurally stamped plans. Didn't say, let's get together and talk and tell me what you're doing. So I think, you know, there's obviously a big communication problem, but why would he do anything if he thought he needed structural plans and stamped plans and wasn't willing to do that? So he just didn't do anything.
I understand your point, but again, the question before the ZBA tonight is whether the building inspector correctly interpreted and applied the state building code. And in this case, the specific language in the state building code is that the building inspector is to request additional design documents prepared by a registered design professional. In this case, in this state, in this jurisdiction, that is an architect or an engineer. And so the building inspector applied the International Building Code to the letter of the law in this case. It's reflected in his letter. And so while I understand that, again, those are difficult burdens to meet that are not necessary in every case, the building inspector was simply doing what he's authorized to do, using the actual language out of the building code that he is tasked with enforcing. And if the language in that isn't entirely conducive to grabbing a beer and hashing things out, that's the International Code Council's fault, not the building inspector's fault.
Can I add one thing? Is it possible? You know, this notion that the building official can request additional construction documents, there's a full sentence to that. And it starts off where special conditions exist. The building official is authorized to require additional construction documents to be prepared by a registered design professional. Pray tell me what special conditions exist here.
May I?
You know, they don't, and it's not for, it's the town's policies drive this. The building permit application, what it asks for, it drives this process, you know, and there's nothing in the state building. In fact, when you read the IBC and the IRC, it says nothing in here will nullify any state, local, you know, or you know, regional jurisdiction. And it's not for this board to consider what the town or the governing body of the town might have said or might have wanted, and it's not the job to put in words that aren't there. That building permit application asked me for some specific things. I gave it. Trying to go back and graft things out of the IBC or the IRC or the IEBC, whatever you want, I don't think works.
If I may.
Sure.
The special condition in this case was that there was not enough information for the building inspector to make an informed decision to determine that the proposed construction would comport with all applicable building codes. That is what that code provision is designed to address, is when the building inspector does not have enough information. And that was exactly what happened here.
That building inspector has approved permit after permit after permit with less information than I provided. So this idea that, you know, that this is a double secret building that special conditions exist upon, it's just not true. It's not. You and I will differ on that till, you know, till the end of time. The simple, you know, conventional construction frame building that he's been in, that he's been by, that he approved an existing permit on. It was an existing building that was in the file. The idea that he didn't know what this building is, I'm sorry, to me is preposterous.
Why not just provide him with that photograph that you provided to the ZBA?
He didn't ask me for anything. He asked me for construction documents.
I'm just, there
listen,
were numerous ways to identify which building we were talking about.
I am, you know the history here as well as anyone, right? I am not going out, I'm going to go out of my way to provide what I need to provide. I believe every communication I get from the building inspector is another attempt to punish me for objecting to that stop work order a year ago and for taking actions against the building inspector. You know, if anyone with half a brain, you know, you want to talk about, you know, essentially an idea of how things work out, Should have had a new building inspector be assigned to this project. Towns do it all the time. You know, we're not, to quote, you know, Strother Martin, we do have a failure to communicate here. And I don't think that's going to change absent heading up to Superior Court or ultimately Supreme Court. You know, I think too much water has passed underneath the dam. The issue to me is pretty simple. Should he have acted on this building permit given the information he had? And you'll either decide, yes, he should have, or no, he shouldn't.
So is Exhibit 1 here, these 2 pages, and this is what the building inspector received?
Correct.
So anything else I've seen, he wasn't privy to?
Correct.
No structural whatsoever.
What's that?
There were no pictures and nothing structural whatsoever, just
Okay.
a rectangle drawn.
It was just those 3 pages.
Anything else from the audience? We have 4 people hanging in there and nobody's speaking, so I'm a little, you know.
I mean,
Come on up.
It really boils down to,
Microphone.
I need you to be at a microphone.
I think it, like I said earlier, it really just boils down to, you know, he gets paid by the town to go out. It's in his job description. He should have gone out and looked at the site, told Mr. Kane if he needed something more, he should have told him that. It's directly written in his job description. To cooperate with the citizens, homeowners, residents, business people. That's the problem here. Had he gone out, told him what, if he needed anything else, or even went out and looked at it and said, hey, I'm not sure what building this is. Can you just show me what you're doing here? This would have been resolved, right? I mean, I'm asking you, right? I mean,
As far as I can tell.
it would have been resolved had he gone out and done that. Had he done his job and said, hey, I'm a little bit off on this. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Can you just show me what building it is? Rather than send out this letter that's confusing, not speak to him, which he's supposed to do. I mean, I have his job description with me. I can read from it if I have to. But I can tell you, and you know, that it's his job to work with them, to go out and to speak with them. Had he drove out, like he's supposed to do, he is a building inspector, look at the building and say, hey, I already approved this. It's a done deal at that point. He should have just told them what he needed, problem resolved. That's the end of it, really. That's the bottom line.
I understand your point and perspective.
yep, I understand.
And Jim, thank you very much. I think that the way that you handle this is, you're right. You're right about the snow loads. There's nothing there now, and it doesn't affect the snow loads. So you're absolutely right. Thank you.
Anything before we close this?
No,
You're sure?
I'm promised.
Okay.
Peter, may I make a suggestion? You can tell me if I'm out of line. But if both Mr. Foy and Mr. Kane would agree to meet together next week at the site and discuss this and come to a conclusion of that, then we would, suspend this hearing until the next meeting and let them try to come to an agreement.
Are you good with that?
Fair enough to me. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Mr. Foy, are you good with that? Well, then why don't we just continue this and hope that you folks can come to some amiable conclusion?
Fair enough.
Okay?
The continuation date would be January 4th.
Okay.
It's okay with me.
And just to let any other people know that are interested in this, that there will be no additional notification of the continuance. You just got to kind of remember it. The agenda does get posted to the website, but you won't receive notification in the mail like you did today for this one year.
So to continue the Obama thing, If you guys meet,
I never thought you would be, referencing Obama, but
neither did I. If you guys meet, I'll buy the bottle of wine from you.
Okay.
That you split.
Oh, good Lord.
All right.
I cringe every time he references
I don't
anything.
know what he
Building
does.
inspector can do that on the
I
job.
don't know what he does on the job.
Spend half my day trying to keep you out of trouble,
All
Peter.
right. I don't think they got me in trouble. Okay.
So this one's officially continued to January 4th.
okay,
So we're done with this for now.
yes.
Hopefully we never see it
We'll see
again.
if we can resolve it.
Thank you. Okay, that's the last hearing for this evening. We have three.
I don't need to be up here for the rehearing.
I can't listen to you.
Yeah, right.
For those.
Same. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we ready to keep going? Or people need a break for a second?
I'm fine.
I can go on.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Let's go next to the next rehearing request.
Would you like me to read the two together?
Yes.
Okay. The following are motions for rehearing that have been filed and the board's capacity is the Building Code Board of Appeals. These are not public hearings, but are a deliberative process of the board that will be conducted in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 677. Folks, I need,
Guys, gentlemen, Rick. Yeah, we need like the room. If you want to chat, please go
you
outside.
can stay, just don't talk.
Okay.
Number 23-07, a request from Sweet Hill Farm LLC for an appeal of the administrative decision of the building inspector code enforcement officer failing to act on a building permit application filed on February 9th, 2023. The subject property of the building permit application is 82 Newton Road, tax map 68, lot 8, in both the LDR and ICR zoning district. The applicant is the property owner of record. Numbers 23-08, a request from Sweet Hill Farm LLC for an appeal of the administrative decision of the building inspector code enforcement officer failing to act on a building permit application filed on March 27th, 2023 for a B house. The subject property of the building permit application is 82 Newton Road, tax map 68, lot 8, both in the LDR and ICR zoning districts. The applicant is the property owner of record. These were both originally decided on the September 28th, I believe,
Indeed.
and both were denied, obviously, because that's what they're asking for.
Bear with me for a moment.
I'm sorry, I did not prepare draft motions for these, but both of them would be to grant the request for the rehearing.
Yes. So we don't need them yet. Well, actually, we do need them. So let's start with the first case, 23-07. Somebody have a motion? One of three somebodies. Do we have a motion?
There isn't a draft motion. It would just be to grant the request for rehearing in 23-07.
Make a motion to grant the request for item number 2307
For rehearing.
for rehearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Sorry, we have to do this every time, guys.
This is a little out of ordinary for us.
So these are, well, they're unusual cases for us, given that we're acting as Building Code Board of Appeals. And as such, which is a role we're not, frankly, we haven't done a lot of. 20 years I've been doing this. These are the first, I think, that we've heard of as that kind of board. But acting as that board, just from get-go, an applicant doesn't have the right to appeal to us for a rehearing. It goes to a state board for a rehearing. So I think I'm against this request for that reason, because we don't have jurisdiction to grant a rehearing.
So what state board does it go to?
State Court, Building Code Board of Appeals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the standard method of handling this.
That's the only method
Okay.
for the
All right.
RSAs of handling this.
Okay. I've never done it before, so.
But I also want to, but before we go further, I want to also make comments about a couple other comments in the request for rehearing. In the request for rehearing, Mr. Kane makes some comments that both I and Mr. Kiley should have recused ourselves. And I don't see that in either case that being correct. He knew who the health inspector was from other interactions beforehand. My comments were neutral at worst, definitely not negative. And we'll note that earlier this evening, I wasn't asked to recuse myself from a case from the same person, same location. So I don't believe I should have done that. Does anybody else have comments on this? We've all read it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Great detail.
And everybody can certify that they also received a copy of and looked through Exhibit 6?
Yes. But I'll note in Exhibit 6, while it's relatively thorough, description of building permit application procedures in other towns, nowhere does it say that the process used in Plastow was not lawful. So I didn't find a lot of value in it. Any other comments, questions?
Not really. I mean, if we don't have jurisdiction, we don't have jurisdiction,
Right.
so.
Ready to call the roll? Folks,
Okay, could we have a clarification on,
Confusion of yes means,
that we grant a rehearing.
okay.
okay,
Michael Murray,
no,
Jim O'Brien,
No,
Peter Belo,
No.
Jim Unger.
No,
Your vote is 0-4-0, and the motion does not pass.
Okay. In the case of 23-08, we have much the same situation.
Could we have a motion?
Oh, sorry. Can we have a motion?
he knew what to say last time.
stumbled through it, and I'll stumble through it again. Make a motion to approve,
Request, no, approve the request for
approve the
rehearing
request for a rehearing
in 23-08.
for site 23-08.
In a second.
second,
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Again, I think we have the same situation with this as we're acting, we don't have the jurisdiction to grant a rehearing.
Pretty much identical.
Yeah, it has to go to the state board. Anything else, folks?
No,
no,
D?
Jim O'Brien,
no,
Peter Belo,
No.
Jim Unger,
No,
Michael Murray.
no,
Your vote is 0-4-0, and the motion does not pass.
Okay. Okay, Dee, would you read the last?
We have another motion for rehearing, which is also not a public hearing, but a deliberative process that the board conducts in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 677. Case number 23-13, a request from Joseph Greenwood for a variance from Article 5, Table 22032F C1B to permit the construction of a single-family home on a lot that does not have required frontage on a Class 5 road. The lot is reported to have 800-plus feet of frontage on Carlton Path, which is not a Class 5 road. The property is located at 2 Carlton Path, also known as 14 Linwood, Tax Map 18, Lot 8, in the LDR zoning district. Johnny Landry is the property owner of record.
Okay, will somebody make a motion? You're good at it.
Make a motion to
Grant the
grant
request
the request for
rehearing
rehearing,
in case number 23-13.
case number 23-13.
Second,
Go ahead, you can take it.
Oh, see, now they're fighting the second on it. I got
We're
it.
all trying.
you didn't have to turn your head.
Who's
So-
going to be the second, Mr. Chair? I heard them both at the same time.
Mr. Murray.
Thank you.
So in this case, we are acting as a ZBA, so we can, in theory, grant a rehearing request. I guess the question is, we'll start with it. The request we had is not for a rehearing exactly, but I'm treating it as such.
Can I get certification from the board that everybody has read the letter from Attorney Pansiaco so it doesn't have to be read into the record, or I'm happy to read it into the record?
I read it multiple times.
I have read it.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's part of the record.
Sure. So, we're treating this as a request for rehearing, although it really doesn't say that. It says to reopen this matter and suspend any approval. But I think semantically, they end up being the same or very similar. So what the ZBA did was grant the right to build on a Class 6 road.
No, to grant the light on a not Class 5 road.
Yeah, on a on less than a Class 5 road. And the only other smaller number is, or larger is 6. Okay?
That's the only reason I'm being corrective like that is because the ordinance specifically says, and the legal notice specifically said, not on a Class 5 road.
Okay? So the Attorney Pansiaco suggests that we weren't shown that they have a legal right, the applicant had a legal right to access this private, quote-unquote, private road and must produce a deed or court order showing they have the right. The reality is we had a document that Mr. Mosier signed in order to build his home across the street, across the path, that's clearly called out that this is a Class 6 road. So I think we did have something in front of us to show that. And we're not granting the right to go build, I think there's going to be other, Mr. Mosier has other avenues to go down. But I don't see any new evidence in Attorney Pansiaco's letter, and I don't see where we made any error in our judgment.
I agree. And also, since the time of the hearing, we've received a final degree from the Superior Court of Rockingham County dated May 13th, 2015. That deals with this area.
That says this is not, that the Mosiers can't restrict access to that, on that road.
Right.
Yes.
So Attorney Pansiaco may or may not have been privy to that. I don't know. Are we ready to make a vote? Jim?
Yeah, I have a question to ask, if I may.
Of course.
I was not present at the meeting when this was thoroughly discussed and debated, so given this rereading or reading for the first time the information relative to this case in the discussion here tonight, should I recuse myself from voting on this, or?
If you're not comfortable that you have enough knowledge of what transpired at the meeting, that would certainly be appropriate.
You could abstain, whatever.
Okay.
Or you could abstain from the vote, either way.
It's up to you.
Okay.
So, but if you're going to recuse, you should do it as quickly as possible.
Okay, no, I'll move forward without recusing myself.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments?
No?
Okay, in that case, do you want to call the roll?
Peter Belo,
No.
Jim Unger,
No?
Michael Murray,
No.
Jim Unger. I mean, sorry,
already
Jim
called me.
O'Brien.
No.
Okay.
Vote is 0-4-0, and the motion does not pass.
Okay,
That means it didn't pass,
correct.
or you okay in the bill?
They did,
We have never okayed
They
anyone
have
to
never-
vote.
I don't understand what's going on.
Then you need to talk to your lawyer.
I did, and you just threw out. I'm losing my patience with everything going on here.
excuse me, you cannot speak as part of this process.
We're,
You cannot speak as part of this process. The decision will be sent to the applicant.
okay, why don't we go over the minutes?
Okay.
Draft minutes? Does everybody have a chance to read this tome?
Yeah, I took a couple of hours.
Just providing you your bedtime reading, folks.
Can't imagine having to type that up.
So do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes of the October 26, 2023 meeting.
Okay, and I'm going to make a change in that a little bit, as amended by Mr. Murray.
No. What you have in front of you at this meeting has already
Oh,
been,
okay, fine.
Already been
He made
amended.
some changes to the initial, that went out. So, okay, fine. I'll second. Any discussion?
A discussion?
D?
Jim Unger,
Yes?
Michael Murray,
Yes.
Jim O'Brien,
Abstain, wasn't present at the meeting.
Peter Bealow.
Yes.
Your vote is 3-0-1, and the motion passes. The only thing I have left for you folks this evening is it should have a copy of the draft 2024 schedule for deadlines and meetings. That was prepared in accordance with your bylaws as far as the dates are there.
Yep.
I just need to ask the board to make a motion to approve the schedule.
I move that we approve the 2024 schedule for the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
I'll second.
Is there any questions you have for me about it or anything?
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't get to hand out trick or treat candy this year.
Well, the meeting starts at 6:30. You can be there for the first hour and a half.
Well, we're all going to have to dress up for it.
Oh, good Lord, let's hope there's no applications. Are you ready for me to call it, Mr. Buelow?
Yes.
Okay. Michael Murray,
Yes.
Jim O'Brien,
Yes.
Peter Buelow,
Yep.
Jim Unger.
Yes.
Vote is 4-0-0, and the motion passes.
Do we have any more business tonight?
That is all I have, sir.
Okay. Frank, you can take us off. I declare this meeting over.